or someone would ask me the other day, she's like, what are you going to do when you actually find someone really similar to you? Would you get along? I was like, gosh, no way.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. So today we're with Alexis Powell-Howard, who is a TEDx speaker, psychotherapist, and the managing director of Fortis Therapy and Training, which is an award-winning mental health and emotional wellbeing service. Alexis is also involved within the Westerly Club, which is a community group for men to find support and advice based in the UK. So Alexis, could you give us an outline of Fortis Therapy?
Yeah, so we've been going we're in our 9th year now. We provide therapy for all ages. So our youngest client is 3.5 at the moment, and we work all the way through. So every age we provide lots of different ranges of therapy. So anything like creative therapies and talking therapies. We also provide coaching, reflective practice, lots of training around mental health for all ages as well. We do a lot of work in businesses, organisations and schools around wellbeing and wellbeing strategies, and also developing people coaching, or anything to do with people really, and that's our bag. Those services have just really developed over the last few years. And then the Westerly Club, which you mentioned, is the men's mental health group that we've launched on Facebook, a private group, which is only open to men over the age of 16. There's 4 interloping women in there to keep everyone in check, but other than that, it's all men.
Yeah, so that would very easily get out of balance very quickly. Yeah. There's a lot of testosterone floating around in one Facebook group.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody wants that. So basically what we did was, I've wanted to launch something like that for ages, because we do a lot of work with police officers and veterans, and I wanted to kind of have something that would be accessible, but not really been able to figure out how to do that, because clearly I'm the wrong gender to be pushing men's mental health. So we decided to do it with some ambassadors, so local business people from different kind of male-orientated sectors, so that we had those representatives, and that's landed really well. And the Westerly Club, being a Westerly, is a fishing term. So the town I have grown up in used to have one of the busiest fishing ports. So your Westerly would be, the person you would lean on, having had if you had a bad fishing trip, 3 weeks around Iceland and not coming home with much, then you would have a mate who would basically buy you a pint, make sure you're okay, and someone to lean on. So that's the kind of idea we went with. So it's more about supporting each other rather than having experts in the group who know what people should do, because everyone's got their own ideas and their own answers to their own questions. Really, it's just helping them to find them.
And have you found that on the group a lot of people are active and sharing, or?
Yeah, it's been surprising actually. I was quite nervous when we launched it. It takes a lot to get me nervous, but I was kind of thinking, oh God, what if this doesn't work? What if it all kicks off and we can't manage it and people aren't respectful? And I just put lots of group rules in so that people knew what to expect. But and anyone can post. But it has been incredible that people have been very honest, and that the responses have been very helpful and respectful. And it's not there isn't any egos in there, and that was the reason we chose the ambassadors we did, because they didn't have that kind of, it wasn't about their ego, it was about wanting to actually help the conversation along. So everyone's in there for the right reasons, I think.
I think also having these groups where people don't actually need to interact and communicate with everyone, and can be a bit more of like a bystander and a passenger along the way, I think would also be really, welcoming for them. They can just see the whole process unfolding without having to put their own public opinion out there.
It's like learning by osmosis, like they're in the background and I know they're there. So if we post something, I know that if they don't comment, they've probably read it, watched it. We're doing interviews in there every Thursday night with different guys who come along to talk to me. And, last time we had a police officer, and the time before we've had a football manager in, just different guys from different perspectives. And I know I've got clients in that group, and they've said to me, I'm in, but don't expect me to comment. and that's totally fine, because a few years ago they wouldn't have even gone in. So things are moving on. It's just, and that's fine. If some people want to introduce themselves and be visible from the beginning and others don't, and whatever works really.
Yeah, so those small steps are so much better than no steps at all.
Completely. And that's really the idea behind it, is just to make, I hate the word normal because I don't think any of us really have a normal, but there's something about kind of recognizing that some of these ups and downs are quite natural, that we all have them and we're triggered by different things, and life throws things at us when we least expect it. And that's okay. It's not that anyone's, weak or been derailed or should be ashamed of that. It's just, actually, it's just part of life. And unfortunately, sometimes that's really tough to get through, but there are people who can help that conversation. And that's really the main thing, is to talk about it, or at least be learning, maybe about different ways of seeing things or different ways of thinking about things.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm not 100% sure if it's us getting older or it's been like sort of the pandemic and everything, but like I've definitely been a lot more aware of my mental health and how it affects me, and then also being aware of my friends this year compared to any time in my life. Do you think there's a correlation between the pandemic and that, or is it just
Completely? No, completely. I mean, excuse me, we were looking to launch this kind of group earlier this year, face to face, and we were just about to do that. We were literally meeting in a pub to discuss it when they shut the pubs that day. So that was good timing. Yeah, absolutely. So what I've seen, I do a lot of webinars, a lot of podcasts and interviews, and a lot of the themes that come from all the client work we do is that every time there's been a new wave of information, or there's been something more uncertain, there's been another wave of difficulties, and people, whether sleep being affected, or, missing people they really care about, or, losing someone and not being able to, see them when they're poorly, or go to their funeral in the same way as they normally would. And so there's an awful lot more triggers, and there's a lot more out of control of at the moment than probably ever before. And so I think you're absolutely right that there is definitely an increase, and everybody's worldwide, we're all in the same pandemic, but each of us, I kind of keep thinking about it almost like a recipe. We've all got our own ingredients and our own recipes that mean that our outcomes are different. So, you might have family members you're concerned about, it might be colleagues, it could be friends, it could be children, it could be elderly parents, it could be finances. There's lots of people's finances have been impacted. So I think there's lots and lots of different layers at the moment that make what's happening quite heavy, and everyone's got their own thing they're carrying, really.
And look, just going back to that point you're making before about no one really having a baseline of normal. I think from my small bit of experience, it's like everyone seems to have a couple of different levels of normal they can kind of come in and out of and back down and skip up and down. If someone comes to you saying, I just don't feel myself, how would you explain that feeling of no one's really normal to them?
Yeah, I mean, we put ourselves under a lot of pressure about what we should and shouldn't be feeling, I think. And often people who are struggling will say, I look at everybody else and they all seem normal. They all seem fine, because we all put a mask on and we can all look absolutely fine and, kid everybody every day if we wanted to. But I think it's about being honest about just how we are actually doing. And like you said, there's that kind of, you've probably got parameters where you move in and out of different levels. And they feel relatively okay. But if you drop too low and you start to feel too low in mood, or very anxious, then that's probably not within your normal range. So it's important to think about, okay, what is going on? Where am I at? Who can I talk to? Who can help me? Even if that's something you've never done before, it's important to recognize that actually we're in uncertain times and this situation is very, very different. So, we maybe have to do something different in order to be able to feel better about that.
Yeah, got you.
And
So look, if someone came to you just like straight off the bat, and they were really stressed out, really overwhelmed, what would be one main thing that you were getting them to do just instantly to be able to help them kind of compose themselves a bit more?
Yeah, breathe. It's very, very underrated. Breathing is it's such a good tool. It sounds like a really kind of therapist thing to say, and I appreciate that. However, it's really effective. So if people are, when we are in that state, what's happening is our amygdala, so the part of our brain that gets us into that fight, flight, freeze, and flop response, is running on overtime. And And whilst that's happening, our breathing changes, you know, your heart rate goes up, you might have, you know, palms might be hot and sweaty, and your legs start to feel a bit jellified. All of those symptoms are starting to kind of kick off. That's all the physical responses to what you're feeling from a mental health and emotional well-being point of view. So if you manage your breathing, and the whole key with breathing is to have your breath out longer than your breath in. So when people are breathing in, they want to be filling their diaphragm up with air and then breathing out longer if they can. So I always talk about 7-11 breathing. So 7 in, 11 out. If you can't manage that because you're panicky, whatever you can manage, but just slowing the whole thing down, because the more oxygen you get in, the more your brain calms down, the more your muscles relax. It gives you that space. You know, they haven't got that space when you're in that place of running, mentally running at 100 miles an hour. So you've got to create it. So creating some space by breathing well and properly, and it's something to practice. So it's not just something to do when you're in that stress state. You need to be practicing it before you even are anywhere near that, so that it's automatic and you automatically just know it works. And that can give you a lot of confidence to be able to manage. And the other side to it as well is just recognizing what you can actually control in the situation, because often we're feeling panicky because we're trying to get control over something or somebody we don't have a hope in hell of controlling. We don't have that, you know, we don't have that level of control. So being able to kind of put into perspective, what can I control? Breathe properly, slow down, then you start to be able to think more clearly, and then you can make some decisions that actually probably going to be beneficial, rather than ones where you end up, you know, walking out or feeling sick, or, you know, whatever goes with it, whatever your reactions are.
I was actually going to ask that same question. So,
Well, I guess one breathing exercise I know that me and Leroy have been doing a lot of lately, it seems to be quite popular, is the Wim Hof breathing method.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really good in terms of when I am feeling anxious. It kind of helps me kind of take a moment just to sit and just settle. And then when you're holding that breath for, I think it's almost like a minute and a half, like I have the strangest thoughts going through my head. It's this instinctive thought of, I really want to breathe, but it's going to play against my pride to not breathe. And then it's this battle of, okay, am I pushing it too far now? And then I get worried again. And then it plays on my pride even more. And then all of a sudden you get to that point where you're like, oh, I can do it. You know, I can kind of control this reaction type anxiety. And I think for me, I find that it's been really helpful in terms of when I am flipping out. Like, okay, if I can do this, if I can stop my instinct to want to breathe, I can handle this and get my head a bit clearer to be able to take that on.
Yeah.
Would there be, but my only thing with the Wim Hof one is it's actually quite hard. And it can actually make my heart rate come up quite a lot, because it's really struggling. It's a really tricky thing to do.
Yeah.
Would you say that some breathing exercises might be a bit too extreme for that sense of calming someone down in the short term?
I'm a massive believer in finding what works for you. You know, what will work for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. And, you know, it's interesting because the way you just described that, it's like by doing that exercise, it's almost like there's a competitive aspect to it, but there's also a distraction as well, because whatever might have triggered you or whatever might have been worrying you, you kind of disconnect from that because you're trying to see how far you can go. So you've got this kind of dialogue going on in your head, which takes you away potentially from what was going on. So some people trying to do that might feel quite scary and not possible. But I think getting your breathing and being in control of your breathing, however you want to use it, it's powerful, because it's something that only you have control over that. Nobody else can do that for you. No one else can stop you from doing it. So whatever method works, there's loads of different breathing techniques that, you know, like I say, some people just kind of think, I can't do belly breathing, it's just too much, or the method, or, you know, other different options that are out there. That's okay. It doesn't have to be that that's the one that works for you. It needs to be something else, and that's totally fine.
Because Leroy, I think you feel the same way about me on this breathing one. It's very good, but in the same sense, it's almost like it's not there to relax you, it's there to challenge you.
Yeah, the Wim Hof is an interesting one, isn't it? Like, I do it in the morning when I wake up, instead of like instinctively reaching out for my phone and just going to social media. I always try to do that in the morning, and I feel calm. But yeah, for a while there, especially when you're holding that third one in 130 minutes, your heart is like, you can start to feel it on your ears, but it feels nice after. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've actually, like, this breathing stuff is so relevant because I've been listening to a few different podcasts and like Wim Hof, and I've noticed that when I breathe, I can just really calm myself down. And I guess me saying, like, I saw your video on like anger and stuff. And I noticed, like, for me, I was getting really, really angry at like situations. And then that anger was getting dispersed to people that had nothing to do with that anger. And I found that like breathing and slowing down just made me more rational and like detach this one source of anger from like my friends and family. So I'm really all about the breathing at the moment.
Yeah, I think that thing around the anger as well is important, because anger is something, it's a basic emotion that we all feel at different times, but it can kind of infect relationships if you let it. If you, you know, it's, and I don't know if you've read anything around displaced anger, where you feel angry about something over here, but you go and take it out on that person over there because you can, whereas you haven't done it over in this place. So I think recognizing what your responses are and how you are reacting, and then deciding and making a choice about what you do about that. Breathing gives you a choice. It gives you space to be able to feel like, right, I can do this differently. Whereas when you don't, and you don't stop, you just, basically go and kick somebody else for something that you feel angry about. And then you've got that to sort out as well. So you're almost creating more problems on top of other problems. You think, I'd just stopped at this point, I would have only had one thing to deal with, but now I've upset 3 other people. I've got to go and sort that out. And then everything that brings up as well, which could be shame or embarrassment or whatever.
Yeah. On that, is there any reason that, we are more angry, or like just a lot more angry at our loved ones or people closer to us? Because I was discussing this with some friends. It's so weird. Like, you wouldn't necessarily flip out at some random person, but like when it's like, your mum, you can just like easily just shout. Is there a reason for that? Is that just because
it's safer.
it's
It's
safer?
safe to do that, because that the chances are that they're not going anywhere. So if you lose your temper with someone who you care about, who's especially family, mum, parents, grandparents or whatever, they're not going to reject you out of hand unless it's really serious. The chances are they're going to reset and then they see you next time. You might have to apologize, but they're not going anywhere. And I think there's safety in it. It's almost like it's safe to be angry and to project that onto somebody you care about, whereas to lose it with someone in the street, or to kind of get cross with someone when you're driving or whatever, there's potentially a much worse side effect of that. So yeah, I think it's about safety and just feeling that actually you can take it out on that person, and really the sky doesn't really fall down. The worst things don't happen. Whereas if you do it with a stranger in the street, it's a bit risky. It could, yeah.
So look, in terms of Fortis therapy, because it's quite big, and there's obviously a lot. You're managing director. There's a lot of extra roles and stresses that come with that. And just from all these extra things that you keep on doing, like the TED Talks, all the YouTube videos, they're really good to watch. But how do you for yourself find time to keep making sure you can keep on learning and keep on, becoming a better version of yourself, or anything like that?
I absolutely love doing new things. So I've got a podcast I've just done for the police as well, which has just gone out, and so I'm always looking for something new that keeps me intrigued. And as a therapist, I'm very curious about people's positions on things, and where's that come from, but I'm also intrigued just in life in general. So I want to kind of be able to get messages out there about these kinds of conversations in the most accessible way possible. I suppose in terms of looking after myself and keeping myself in check, sometimes I'm not that great at that, because I have so many ideas about what I want to do. From working with people who are vulnerable, who are really sometimes quite unwell, and who might be threatening to take their own life or be thinking about that, there has to be a balance. So we are at Fortis, I'm really careful about our caseloads and how we're looking after each other, and that's all really important. But I also know that I've had to learn myself to ask for help. So yes, I'm the person who runs it, it's my business, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, and I feel that responsibility. But there are times when I'll say I've got some really good leads. My leaders in my business are really competent people, and I will say to them, right, I've got far too much on my plate at the minute. This is what's going on for me. Where are you at? Who can help me with this? So from a business point of view, I've got people in place that help me. From a psychotherapy point of view, I have a clinical supervisor who I see every month for 2 hours a month to keep myself well. I opt in and out of therapy as I need to. So that, again, I'm learning about myself all the time, because that Fortis is me, really. I am the person who steers it and directs it. So I've got to know and be well myself. I'm married and I've got 3 children. So I have to keep on top of that as well, and trying to manage all that goes with those responsibilities. So there's a lot to go on, and like I say, sometimes I have to rein myself in, and my husband will say to me, I think you might be getting really tired, because and he'll see the signs of me either really feeling quite exhausted, or my patience starts to get thinner. I'm quite a patient person, so those things, sometimes it's really helpful to have people around you, and I have them around me who will say, you okay? That's not always been there, so it's quite nice when someone says, how's your day been, or how are you doing, or what's going on. So it's all that stuff, really, I suppose, for me, is having the support network, having the people that I have people in my business that I really trust, and I allow myself to trust them, because that's been difficult sometimes as well. But also I have people outside of my business who are my support network, who I'm not a therapist with, I'm not a managing director with, I'm not a mum with. So I've got those other parts of me, I suppose, that get that support as well.
And I guess those support networks outside of everything would be able to identify things that you can't see too.
Yeah.
Your clinical mind would be exceptional at picking other people. All of a sudden we become the patient. It's a nightmare of a thing to try and do.
Absolutely. It's overrated as well. It's very tiring to try and be analytical about everybody, including yourself. You have to put it down sometimes, and I think that's often the case with people who are referred, or they're self-referring as well, that they can often see other people have seen that they aren't very well, or they're not functioning that well. So I'm really respectful of the fact that if someone says to me, you all right? I think maybe, am I all right or am I not? Because I'm busy, I'm full on all the time. So sometimes good just to stop. And the other thing I think, which is a really simple thing, is I have 2 mobile phones, which is a real pain to carry around with me all the time. But I have a work one and I have a personal one. So I can literally put work down.
Yep.
So on a weekend, I leave it. It's on charge. I leave it somewhere in my house, and I go off with my personal mobile, and I go off with my family, and I don't check anything. I don't follow everything. I just leave it, and when I'm ready to, I come back to it. But that's really important, as well as literally having barriers and boundaries in place.
Yeah, I found that this year because I've been working from home. So this is my bedroom and my office, and up until from February up until now, just working from home, and I was starting to really those boundaries becoming you couldn't see them anymore. And I put things in place, just like going for a walk straight after work, or trying to turn my phone off, or not accessing my email. Are there any other things people can do to sort of create those boundaries?
Yeah, I think that going out for a walk is really important. I don't know where you work normally, but if you're used to going into an office or into an environment, you've normally got time to get ready for work and time to get ready for home. And we don't have that. I mean, I'm the same as you. I'm at my home office, and trying to keep children from coming in and disturbing me all the time. And I think you've got to be able to create some space. So if you can go for a walk after work, then great. If you can go out and just have a coffee or breakfast sat outside or something like that, where you aren't in your environment all the time, because it's really hard. I've noticed that, I work in mental health, and when I've got clients who I'm working with on platforms like this, they're literally in my house, and I've always deliberately kept it very separate, because I don't want to have that in my house, that my professional life in my house, whilst I'm trying to be a mum and a wife and everything else. So so there are going to be those blurs, I think, just at the minute because of what we're in, but anything you can put in place where it stops your head from automatically going straight into work, you know, like you said about your phone, doing a breathing exercise, then looking at your phone, or, you know, not kind of checking your emails as soon as you get up in the morning and all that, just create space, because really the expectation isn't that you're available all the time. It's just that we kind of fall into that. Boundaries aren't there.
That's well said. Because yeah, like it's and Leroy's had so much trouble with it, and then there's times when it's like our little conversations become like a business call for Leroy. I'm like, hang on, we're not at work anymore. We're making a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, in terms of jumping back to Fortis therapy, you've won quite a few business awards in terms of, you know, service in the UK is, you know, it is a really big one. And you obviously hold yourself up to a really high standard of work level, but you have quite a lot of people that have to be upheld to that standard too. Because like you say, like your business is a reflection of you. You know, it's almost part of your identity. And letting other people in, like, that trust is massive. But having the trust that they're going to uphold that level of service would be quite hard. Is there any way that you kind of empower or promote them to try and lift up to your level of service?
Yeah, I feel really passionately about that. And if my TEDx talks about why I feel passionately about that, you know, in terms of it being really good quality and people, you know, treating others really well. But I'm passionate about the culture within Fortis. So, you know, I have, you know, we have really great culture. So, a lot of it comes down to your systems and processes. So, you know, you've got to recruit the right people for a start. So your recruitment process has to be right. If you're not recruiting the right people, it's because you're not asking the right questions and you're not doing the right processes. Then it comes to your systems and processes within your business. So that's actually quite boring, but it's really necessary. So the processes and systems, if they're in place and and it starts to just roll, then you're checking your due diligence. So, you know, what's the quality like? And are we checking with clients? Are we checking with the businesses we're in, the schools we're in? So we do some formal feedback, we do informal feedback. So that the whole thing really has developed over the years to make sure we've got the right things in the right places at the right times. And if someone's not right, then they don't stay. If I don't think that the practice is good, you know, if it's not good ethical practice, then it's not for me. You know, those are my non-negotiables. I'm very clear on that. I won't tolerate it because I can't, because it's just, you know, we work with vulnerable people. And even if we're delivering training or we're doing wellbeing strategy within a business, we're still dealing with people and their emotions at the end of the day. You know, our wellbeing is a holistic look, but it's also part of our mental health. So, I think for me, one of the key things is getting the culture right so that people buy into that ethos. You know, so I like the saying, and this isn't derogatory to anybody else, but I like the saying about being a flamingo in a flock of pigeons. So if you're going to do it well, stand out and be different, and accept that that's what you're doing, and don't worry about what anybody else thinks. And from that, we've developed, so we have a whole flamingo thing within Fortis, which no one externally knows. But you know, I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase intrapreneur. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, I've started hearing it recently.
Yeah, so an intrapreneur is somebody who works within a business, like an entrepreneur, but internally, innovative, you know, lots of creativity and investment in the business. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for entrepreneurs, because I was an entrepreneur and I know what I needed when I worked for other people. So I facilitate that within Fortis. So going with the flamingo thing, we are flampreneurs. So that we do awards every year, and you know, all of that stuff. So all of that is about buying into being proud of what we do and not feeling, I guess, like, you know, just being invested, and people feeling valued, and that's what I think it fundamentally comes down to.
So
And
let's
how
say
do you?
I was sitting in front of you. You know, I'm in a job interview. This is the first time we've ever met. What would be one question that you would love to ask me to sieve out whether or not I'm right for being a part of your business.
So say for example you were a therapist and you were coming to work with us, my question, the presentation I want you to do is, what led you down the path of becoming a therapist? Why are you passionate about what you do? That's my question. And then you have 10 or 15 minutes to show me that. And then we ask questions based on it. So I want to hear it right from the very beginning. What makes you who you are, and why have you gone down this path? Because most people go down the path of working in mental health because they've got their own experiences. So there's a concept like the wounded healer. So I'm interested about how creatively you're going to show me that story, and how passionate you're going to come across.
Yeah, gotcha.
And
I don't expect much.
How do you promote self-development within your employees and those around you?
I am a big believer in let go and lead, so if I want people to be the best version of themselves, and I don't feel threatened if someone's better at something than me, because I feel that that's a really good indicator that people are invested in and growing within the organization. If they are, moving past me, that's brilliant. I have no issue with that whatsoever. So it's creating the right environment for growth. It's exactly what we would do with a client. We would create the right environment for growth within the therapeutic relationship. And that's what I do within Fortis, not on my own. There's lots of people who help me, and my leadership team, my business manager, they're all great people. So they are all bought into that as well. But I want to see people be innovative. If they've got a new idea, we roll with it, all of that stuff. But we also support each other, because it's not always, sunshine and roses. There's lots of difficult stuff we're dealing with every day, and we have to accept that and support each other with that.
Yeah, it's being there in the good times, but also the bad times too.
Yeah,
they're equally as important. I would say you need more help in the bad times than you do when you're feeling great.
Yeah, and I think if you look at this year and what we've all experienced, we're trying to help other people at the same time as living in the same thing as everybody else, which that's never happened before. You might have your own stuff going on, but generally nobody else would know that. Whereas at the minute, working with clients, everybody knows about the pandemic. There's nothing to hide around that, and we've all got our own circumstances. So during this year, we've increased our peer support sessions, we've increased our conversations. We have literally WhatsApp groups coming out of our ears to make sure, checking in with everybody and all that stuff. So the communication's a really important thing, isn't it? Anyway, but I think at the moment, just making sure that people are doing okay when they're helping others who aren't doing okay. It's really important, more now than ever.
And as we start to wrap up, how can anyone listening sort of get in touch with you or the Westerly Club? Where can we find it?
So we've got a website, which is fortistherapy.co.uk. There's a page on there for the Westerly Club as well, and we're on all the social media platforms. And there's general inquiry numbers and things like that on there as well. So you can get through to me or to any of the team from there.
Awesome.
Look, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been awesome getting to hear your thoughts and opinions on, number one, what a business in the mental health sector should look like. And I think there's a lot of disparity in terms of where they're all up to. And yeah, it's refreshing hearing some that uphold really high standards in terms of, wanting people to achieve more and grow more and doing it for the right reasons.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it.
It's all right.
Thank you.
Well, we'll be keen to catch up with you sometime in the future. And
yeah,
I believe it's good evening there. And we'll get on with the rest of our morning.
I'll go to bed. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Alexis.
Thank you.